Have you ever noticed that just when you decide to change your life, everything seems to fall apart? It's almost ironic. You take one step forward, and the world seems to push you two steps back. Most people interpret this as failure, but what if it's exactly the opposite? What if this initial chaos is the clearest sign that you are entering the territory of prosperity, the same one that Napoleon Hill called the test before the harvest? It sounds strange, I know, but there's a deep logic here that almost no one notices. Think about it. Why did the biggest turning points in your life happen right after uncomfortable moments? Why did opportunities arise precisely when you thought you had lost everything? This isn't coincidence. It's mechanics. There's a pattern, almost a silent ritual, that prepares those who are going to level up. And it doesn't reward those who complain, but those who understand what's really happening. But of course, nobody taught you how to decipher this process. Until now. Today you're going to discover why you're being tested right now, why nothing is going as planned, and most importantly, why this means you're closer to a turning point than you think. But I'm warning you now, after you understand this code, you'll never interpret your challenges the same way again. In fact, they might even start working in your favor, and that's when everything changes. The moment when life seems to get worse before it gets better, the hidden test. When someone decides to change their life, it's almost inevitable that the first few days will seem like one of those strange chapters where everything goes wrong for no reason. Suddenly, what used to work starts to break down. Things that were stable begin to fluctuate, and the person wonders if they're not going in the opposite direction from what they wanted. But those who observe this wisely realize that there's an old pattern there. Every real transformation provokes an initial reorganization. It's like rummaging through a drawer that's been messy for years. Upon opening it, everything seems to get worse before it gets better. And it's precisely in this discomfort that the first test presents itself, silent but precise. And this turbulent beginning is never accidental. It's a kind of intention check, where life observes whether the desire is merely fleeting enthusiasm or if there is firmness behind the decision. Many people mistake this initial chaos for a sign to give up, but the wise understand that it's simply the ground loosening its old roots. When a person decides to level up, what was weak can no longer support the new weight, and therefore crumbles. And it is at this moment that they discover they are being tested not to be stopped, but to be molded into something greater that they cannot yet fully see. It's interesting to note how life uses simple situations to reveal strengths a person didn't even know they possessed. Sometimes it's an unexpected delay, a frustrating conversation, a plan that seemed perfect but simply doesn't fit. These small stumbles aren't meant to knock you down, but to sharpen you. If the path were too smooth, no one would develop emotional resilience or clarity of purpose. And it's precisely at this point, when everything seems out of place, that something essential begins to move, silently preparing the stage for the next test, which is even more subtle and profound. The cleansing phase, when the universe removes what doesn't support its next version. When a person experiences the initial impact of change, a curious phase begins to emerge. Things, people, and opportunities start to disappear without warning. At first glance, this seems like loss, rejection, or even bad luck, but for those who see beyond the obvious, it's simply a cleansing phase. Life removes everything that no longer aligns with the identity being built. It's not punishment, it's purification. And however uncomfortable it may be, this silent withdrawal opens space for something that is still on its way, even if the person cannot clearly see it. Nothing disappears without a reason when you are evolving. Sometimes it's a friend who drifts away, a job that ceases to make sense, or even a habit that suddenly starts to bother you. It's as if life does an internal curation, removing what doesn't support the next version of the person. Have you ever seen someone trying to build a new house on top of the ruins of the old one? It doesn't work. First, you have to tear down what is fragile, and only then does the structure gain enough strength to support what is coming. This stage hurts, but it reveals a lot about who is truly ready to grow. The most challenging aspect of this phase is that, while things are being removed, nothing new seems to enter. It's a strange interval, almost like an emotional vacuum. But this feeling is natural. It's the necessary space for the next construction. The universe works like a gardener. It prunes branches that no longer bear fruit, even if the plant doesn't understand why. And it is precisely during this pruning that the person begins to feel an inner discomfort, a call to reorganize their own life, which paves the way for the next movement. Even more decisive and silent. Strategic silence. The pause that prepares the mental field for richness. After the cleansing phase sets in, something even more disconcerting happens. Silence. It's as if everything is suspended in mid-air. Neither progress nor regression. For most, this period seems like abandonment, as if life had pressed the pause button without explanation. But for those who observe with maturity, this silence is strategic. It allows the mind to stop reacting to external noise and finally begin to see what was hidden within it. It is in this quiet space that the fertile ground for richness begins to be prepared. Many people confuse this interval with failure, but it's exactly the opposite. Silence is the moment when the internal gears align, even if nothing visible is happening. It's similar to what happens to a musician before going on stage. They take a deep breath, adjust their instrument, concentrate. Only then does the music begin. The same thing happens on the journey to prosperity. Silence is the tuning of the soul. And curiously, it is during this period that a person begins to hear a kind of subtle, almost imperceptible guidance that was previously muffled by the noise of routine. This is also the moment when unexpected ideas emerge, small intuitions appear, and the person feels an inner invitation to reorganize thoughts, goals, and even emotions. Silence is not emptiness, it is incubation, and those who respect it, without trying to fill it with distractions, realize they are being led to a level of clarity they never had before. This is the most precious stage because it prepares the mind to recognize opportunities that many ignore. And it is precisely in this tense calm that the next movement is born. The microtests that begin to measure the strength of this new clarity. Microtests, criticism, delays, frustrations, and almost right moments. When silence begins to organize the mind, an even more intriguing phase emerges. Microtests. These don't come as major challenges, but as small situations that affect exactly where the person is still vulnerable. It could be an unexpected criticism, an irritating delay, or that perfect opportunity that, at the last minute, slips through one's fingers. For the wise person, this isn't bad luck. It's a diagnosis. These small frictions reveal whether the new mindset is truly forming or if it's still fragile, unstable, and too reactive. These microtests function like an emotional personal trainer. They challenge patience, discipline, and the ability to maintain focus amidst discomfort. Imagine someone who desires greater prosperity but loses control at the first unforeseen event. How would they sustain a higher level of responsibility? That's why the tests appear on a reduced scale first, like a simulator of real life. And it's interesting to note that when a person responds with maturity, something within them is strengthened without them realizing it. These tests also carry a second intention, to show if the person is prepared to deal with the almost. The almost succeeded is one of the most profound challenges of the journey, because it demands persistence without immediate guarantees. It's that proposal that advances to 95% and stalls, or that plan that only needs one detail to happen. Most give up right there. The almost is always the prelude to something bigger. And it is precisely by going through this phase with serenity that the person begins to approach the most decisive point of the journey, the energetic turning point. After going through the micro-tests, something curious begins to happen. The person realizes they no longer react as before. Situations that once disturbed their peace now seem smaller, almost irrelevant, as if they had developed a kind of more resistant, emotional skin. This is the first sign of the energetic turning point. The change doesn't appear in the external world yet, but it has already changed internally. It's like when someone finally learns to drive. The car is the same, but the driving becomes a different story. The great secret to prosperity is not chasing after circumstances, but altering the energy that creates them. And this change begins subtly, almost invisibly, when a person starts interpreting challenges as information, not as threats. They stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start thinking, "What is this showing me?" This simple shift in perspective changes everything. It is at this moment that the internal vibration begins to align with a higher level of abundance, even before any results appear. This turning point is almost an emotional password. When triggered, it opens the door to opportunities that previously went unnoticed. The person begins to have small intuitions, quick insights, sudden clarity about what to do and what to abandon. It's a kind of silent but very powerful alignment. And those who experience this for the first time feel that something is about to happen, like the breeze that precedes a major change in weather. This is called preparation before the evidence, because it is precisely here that the next movement happens. The ego perceives the change and tries to sabotage everything. Signs that wealth is near, but your ego is trying to sabotage you. When the energy finally begins to shift, an almost inevitable phenomenon arises. The ego awakens. It perceives that the person is about to cross a threshold that the old self no longer controls, and this frightens it. So it creates subtle narratives. It's not the right time. This is too risky. What if it goes wrong? This is a clear sign of progress. The ego doesn't fight against what is stagnant. It fights when it senses that life is truly about to change. It is precisely during this period that fears that the person thought they had already overcome resurface, as if the mind were reviving old insecurities just to test how much they have truly grown. It's curious to note that these fears appear at the exact moment when doors begin to open. It's the paradox of evolution. The closer to the turning point, the stronger the internal resistance. But those who are attentive understand that this resistance is not a real obstacle. It is merely a reflection of the old identity trying to remain in control. Before a great achievement, there's always a last perfect excuse to give up. It's a tempting offer that distracts, a person returning from the past, or even a smaller opportunity that seems safer. These are all classic distractions of the ego. They arise to see if the person is truly ready for the next level, or if they are still easily led astray. And it is precisely at this moment, when the ego makes its last effort, that something profound begins to approach, announcing the next phase. The real opening of paths. The character test. Why shortcuts start appearing before success. When a person overcomes their ego and begins to walk with more clarity, something very curious happens. Shortcuts appear. They appear not to facilitate the journey, but to test character. Suddenly, quick fixes, dubious paths, and suspicious opportunities begin to emerge as magical solutions. But anything that appears too flashy and too shallow needs to be approached with caution. The universe doesn't offer shortcuts. It offers choices, and each choice reveals who a person truly is. It's common to think that these shortcuts appear as blessings, but the wise know they are filters. They silently ask, "Do you want real growth or just immediate relief?" For example, someone who is organizing their finances might receive an offer of easy money, or someone building a dream might be seduced by something that seems faster. It is at this moment that character is brought into the spotlight. The choices made at this point determine whether the person is ready to sustain abundance or still needs to strengthen their inner structure. And the most interesting thing is that these shortcuts are always seductive. They appear at the exact moment when the journey seems too long. It's like the runner who sees a side exit in the final kilometer of the race, believing that it will get him to his destination faster. Anything that makes you abandon the path you know is right is never a solution. Resisting these shortcuts is almost like energetically committing to your purpose. And by passing this test, the person unlocks something rare: permission to enter the phase where doors truly begin to open. The phase of opening pathways, synchronicities, opportunities, and the beginning of flow. When a person resists shortcuts and remains true to the path they have chosen, something almost magical begins to happen. The pieces begin to fall into place. Not explosively, but subtly, as if the world around them is finally responding to their inner alignment. This is called the pathway opening phase, because small opportunities begin to emerge as signs that life is collaborating. It's not luck, it's vibrational coherence. The person has sown consistency and now begins to reap direction. At this stage, unexpected contacts arise. Messages arrive at the right time. Ideas seem to fall from nowhere. The famous synchronicity ceases to be something mystical and begins to be perceived as a natural consequence of being aligned with your purpose. It's as if the world is saying, "Now I can support you because you are finally prepared to sustain what you asked for." Many describe this feeling as a different kind of lightness, a fluidity that didn't exist before. This fluidity is not the final destination. It's just confirmation that the path is correct. But it's important to understand that this openness isn't permanent in itself. It responds to internal posture. If a person relaxes too much, loses focus, or reverts to old patterns, the fluidity weakens. Therefore, at this stage, the wisest course of action is to act with mindfulness. Accept opportunities that align with your purpose, ignore distractions, and maintain habits that sustain mental clarity. It's like rowing on a river that has finally become favorable. It's not time to let go of the oars, but rather to take advantage of the flow to advance with precision. And it is precisely at this moment of expansion that the next inevitable question arises: how to maintain everything that has begun to arrive. The responsibility of wealth, keeping what you asked for. When doors finally begin to open and life offers what a person has so longed for, a new challenge arises: maintenance. Achieving it is only half the battle. The real test lies in maintaining it. Many people confuse the arrival of prosperity with the end of the journey, when in reality it is the beginning of a new level of responsibility. What was once just a desire now transforms into routine, discipline, and daily choices. Abundance is not a fixed prize. It is a constant commitment. It's curious to observe how some people lose precisely what they've achieved because they weren't emotionally prepared to sustain the new level. They relax, lower their guard, or revert to old habits that no longer fit their new life. This happens because the old mind tries to reclaim territory. Therefore, those who wish to maintain prosperity need to develop simple but consistent rituals, such as reviewing goals weekly, shielding their focus, avoiding disguised distractions, and cultivating relationships that strengthen, not drain, their energy. And here lies a profound point. The more prosperity a person attracts, the more the universe demands inner coherence. Wealth amplifies everything, including unresolved insecurities. Therefore, it is essential that the person continues their process of self-knowledge, maintaining emotional firmness and clarity of purpose. Maintenance is what transforms a good moment into a new lifestyle. And when a person understands this, they realize that one piece is still missing to complete the puzzle. Understanding the final secret that Napoleon Hill pointed out about the mind as the true ground where wealth is born. The ultimate secret: why the mind prepares the ground long before the money arrives. Upon reaching this point in the journey, Napoleon Hill always insisted, wealth never begins outside. It begins within. Before any results appear in the physical world, the mind is already doing the hard work. It is revising beliefs, broadening vision, adjusting patterns, and strengthening identity. Money only arrives when it finds a mind that knows what to do with it. That's why so many people give up before prospering, because they try to reap without preparing the emotional and mental soil that sustains the harvest. This secret explains why some people work hard for years, and suddenly, after an internal change, everything takes off. It wasn't the effort that changed. It was the identity. Those who see themselves as small create small opportunities. Those who see themselves as capable expand possibilities. The mind is like a field. If you plant doubts, you harvest limitations. If you plant clarity and purpose, you harvest solutions and paths. Prosperity always takes root in the mind before manifesting in the visible world. And that's precisely where the cycle closes. A tuned mind creates stronger decisions. Stronger decisions create more consistent actions, and consistent actions attract ever greater opportunities. When this gear aligns, life responds almost inevitably. But here a natural question arises. If everything starts in the mind, how do you prepare that mind for the next level, for the next phase, for the next expansion? The answer lies in the introduction to the journey that ties all these topics together and shows the viewer why they are living exactly what they need to live now. Ultimately, the big question that remains is simple. What are you going to do with all of this? Because now you know you're not being punished. You're being prepared. Every silence, every delay, every door that closed was, in fact, adjusting you for what you asked for. But prosperity doesn't happen on its own. It happens when you respond to tests with maturity. So, how will you respond to the next ones? If you truly want to enter the turning point phase, start applying this understanding today. Observe your micro-tests. Embrace the silence. Resist shortcuts. Ask yourself, what is this situation trying to strengthen me for? This simple change in attitude already puts you on another level. And remember, life doesn't bestow blessings on those who give up halfway through the process. It rewards those who persevere when no one is watching. Now I want to know, which part of this journey are you experiencing today? Initial chaos? Cleansing? Silence? Micro-tests? Or are you already feeling the paths opening up? Comment below. Your answer could help someone else going through the same process. And of course, if this video brought you clarity, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and keep walking with us. There's much more knowledge coming to accelerate your turnaround.